I'm Rachel Romeliotis, a senior editor at O'Reilly, and I am at OSCON with Dave Neary. He is part of the open source and standards part of Red Hat. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Rachel.
So I think to set the scene, we need to know a little bit about your work at Red Hat and how you got there.
Okay, so I've been with Red Hat for about a year and a half, and I work on a lot of our cloud and virtualization related open source projects. Mm-hmm. So we work in the open source and standards team, we work on the community side of the house. There are other people who build products on top of those open source projects. Mm-hmm. So I work with Overt, which is a virtualization management project, RDO, which is our free community-driven distribution of OpenStack.
Okay.
And currently in the process of working on the open sourcing of some tools that we acquired last year from a company called ManageIQ for managing cloud projects.
Cool. Awesome. Okay, so your session focuses on the next generation of sort of hackers and open source community members. Tell me a little bit, give me a preview of that.
Okay, well, this really started from the fact I'm a parent. I have 3 young kids, 11 years old, 8 years old, and 6 years old at the moment. And I've noticed that the hacker community, we're getting older. You know, when I started working on open source back in the 90s.
Well, and I think you should explain what you mean by hacker, because some people think one thing, some people think another.
So when I talk about the hacker community, I'm talking about the open source community, the maker community,
yes.
The people who are really treating the world as a place that's read-write and not read-only.
Agreed.
If I can put it that way.
Very good.
And that community, we're growing older. When I started in open source in the 90s, we were all young. We were all either students or recently left college, and now we're getting old. You know, I'm getting towards my 40s. A lot of people are turning up here with their kids, and one of the things that we have consciously tried to do with our kids is to pass on the values that I think are important about the open source culture, the maker culture, and try and instill those values in my kids and give them a sense that the world is a kind of a plaything. Someplace that they have some...
And so your session talks about how to do that?
So it's some of the things that we've done, and I'm not claiming to be an expert on this topic, right? I am by no means an expert in education, but it's some of the things that we have consciously done to instill that kind of creative spirit and the maker culture in our kids.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So, okay, so you got to give me some examples, though, so
okay.
I can see what they've been doing.
Starting from the start, so it's creative toys, things like Lego, Meccano, which is, I think the equivalent is constructor kits, or
sure.
what are they called in the US?
I think you're right, constructor kits.
Okay.
I don't know, Connects? I don't know. But I know what you mean.
Yeah. Which are toys that are evolutive. You've got kind of baby versions and then young children versions, and then growing up towards the 11, 12-year-old, you get to the more complicated kits. So starting with that, just having creative toys so the kids are getting used to building things from their toys and making their own amusement. We also make an active effort to include our kids in things like home improvement. So recently we did a basketball ring, right, for the kids. It's like a piece of plywood that I cut with a jigsaw, and the kids painted it and got the hoop ready, and we put it up, and it was, you know, they were taking pride in the fact that they were involved in something that they would then be using. And so making a garden. It's one of the great things, I think, is that they have the opportunity to see something that they plant grow and get better, and also see the consequences if they don't water the plants. Right? We see the plants wither and die, and we don't get any fruit out of them. And the kids, you know, it's always hard to get kids to eat vegetables. Kids loved eating salad that they picked from the garden that they planted themselves.
Right. I love that you have it sort of all over the place, gardening, you know, mechanical stuff. Do you plan to introduce programming and that sort of stuff?
Sure. So we've already started with the Arduino.
Okay.
And starting from the very start, one of the things that I've encouraged them to do, and we leave tools lying around all the time, whether it's a glue gun for doing arts and crafts with popsicle sticks, or a screwdriver, so that when a toy breaks down, they can take it apart and see what's going wrong. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we've started to do is playing with an Arduino. One of the things that I found there that works really well is kind of a pair programming, where I set up the circuit and then they start changing numbers in the programs to see what effects that has. And also they're plugging things in. We'll have a look just to make sure there's no certain short circuits or anything. But they're playing around with the electronics as well, and having an effect, something that they're writing or something that they're doing in a computer, having an effect on something in the real world.
Right.
It's that look of wonder.
Very powerful.
When they see a motor turning, a motor that's working because of something they've done, it's like, whoa!
Right. So you're definitely raising your kids to be part of the hacker community, the open source community. Do you have any frustrations about doing this? Have you found that everyone's been welcoming? Are there things in place for you to do with your kids?
Well, I mean, they're still young, so we're not at the point where I am encouraging my kids to submit patches to open source projects.
Yeah.
One of the things that's been frustrating is that I'd like them to be going faster, but my kids are normal kids, and 8-year-olds don't understand kind of ifs, ands, that while loops and things like that, conditional structures. So the kind of the basics of the algorithmic basics of computing are a little bit beyond them.
Sure.
But they're getting there.
Yep.
And I'm sure that I will be frustrated with the welcome that they're getting in some open source projects very, very soon. It's not happened yet.
Yeah. Well, I hope not. And it sounds like you have a fun household. So, but I want to thank you for joining me today.
Thank you very much.
And have a great conference.
Thank you.